I call the third public hearing to order. Fabella, can you please read the title of the public hearing?
Tonight's third public hearing is on proposed local law number 10 of 2019, a local law regarding comprehensive campaign finance reform in Ulster County. There are currently 13 speakers signed up.
Okay, I'm going to remind you that you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please keep in mind the timekeeper at the back of the room, and any written comments you have can be submitted and will be included in the file.
The first speaker, I'm not sure if he's here, is Henry Bartosik.
He has to be crossed out.
Okay. The next speaker is Cynthia Wagner.
Mr. Bartosik is here.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Cynthia Wagner. My husband and I live and pay taxes in Ulster County in the town of Warsing. I read several times the 38 pages of law number 10. The amount of gobbledygook needed to regulate the distribution of the fund is a measure of how flawed an idea it is. A bad idea coupled with Band-Aids is still a bad idea. The starting $75K fund is already set aside in the 2020 budget to distribute to candidates. This is quite a statement in itself. Where is the fairness in this? Forcing a taxpayer to give money to a candidate that we do not agree with, that is what this fund will do. The courts already have ruled that unions can't do this with dues, so why should our government direct political speech? People express themselves in different ways. Supporting the candidate we like is one of them. They are our voice. Doesn't this go against my freedom of expression or speech? When debating politics with friends and neighbors, one thing we do agree on is that it is not okay to spend our tax money for political campaigns. In this proposal, it says candidates can opt in or is it out, whichever really. I want the same option, do any of you? And finally, an unintended consequence of this proposal is that it will increase the cost of everyone's campaign and further elevate dollars over ideas and opinions in our elections. This should be deferred and presented as a ballot proposition in the next election, including the cost of the new hires and hearing officers, court and filing costs. If the purpose is to further democracy, then let's be democratic and let the people decide. Put it to a vote. Thank you.
Sam Niffen.
Hello. All right. So first of all,
Turn up the mic.
all right. First of all, just prefacing this, I don't believe that property taxes are ethical at all because it pretty much extorts people for owning land. I'm not a landowner myself. I'm only 18, but I've seen the absurd property taxes that my dad pays, and the fact that the county would even consider using this money to finance campaigns that I may or may not disagree with is absurd. That's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Janet Knott.
Go, Janet.
All right, Jenny. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. As was said, my name is Janet Knott. I'm a licensed clinical social worker for the Department of Mental Health in Ulster County, and so for the last 29 years. In addition to that, I'm the current CSEA president for the county unit, and an Ulster County taxpayer living in the town of Rosendale. I want to express my extreme opposition to this proposed local law on campaign finance reform. I'm very well acquainted with the services that county employees provide to the residents who live here, from highways to child protective services to crime victims. And I could give you an extensive list on how $75,000 of taxpayer money could be better spent on enhancing those services. And what happens when 75,000 becomes 100,000, or 100,000 becomes 200,000? So, 75,000 to finance public campaign, or $75,000 to provide better services to the county residents living here. Please vote no on this local law number 10, and thank you so much for letting us speak.
Good evening. My name is Todd Schmidt. I'm the CSCA Local 856 President. I'm also the Region 3 Political Action Chair and Vice President of CSCA Region 3, representing 30,000 CSCA members and their families. I'm also a resident of the town of Ulster. I've lived in this county for almost 50 years, and I've worked for the county for more than 31 years. And most importantly, as a taxpayer, I think when we think about what is the purpose of government, what is government's job? Government's job is to provide services to people, to its constituents, whether that's with the winter weather we had this morning, salting, plowing the roads, whether that's repairing our bridges, whether that's taking care of our veterans, taking care of our elderly, taking care of people who are in need, falling down on their luck, unemployed, have to go to social services to get assistance, hopefully for a temporary basis. That is what the purpose of government is, not publicly financing campaigns for people who want to get into the political arena. I strongly urge both Democrats and Republicans to reject this, and as Janet mentioned earlier, 75 this year, 100 next year, 200, so on. Where does it end? And the bottom line is that the money could be greatly used in other areas. As we think back over the last 10 or 15 years on how the budget and the services that employees here have provided have gotten smaller. So I ask you to reject this. Thank you very much for the time.
Tom Denton.
Good evening. I attended a hearing in this room several months ago when the subject you debated was proposed sites in the county for early voting. At that same meeting, a number of legislators here jostled about money, specifically whether its influence had penetrated the actions of government through campaign contributions, the awarding of contracts, and the favoring of certain groups or individuals over others. It seemed to me then that money was the proverbial elephant in the room, making many of you uncomfortable. Tonight we're talking about money again and how to deal with it. I believe the legislature should be commended for tackling the subject of campaign financing. The proposed solutions before you will go a long way toward tempering the influence of money in our political system. It will give good prospective candidates opportunities they don't currently have, candidates on both sides of the aisle. It will make it possible to rebalance the power of large and small donors. It will help improve transparency. And although fairness is a challenging abstraction when it comes to money, passing the campaign finance bill will signal that the Ulster County Legislature is willing to try to be more fair for the benefit of its citizens and the principles of good government. Democracy is a public resource, and it needs and deserves public support. This bill has been a long time coming through the efforts of public officials and county residents. When it is passed, I believe that you will have good cause to feel comfortable and proud. Thank you.
The next speaker is Attilio Contini.
Madam Chair,
Chairman, legislators, general public. My name is Attilio Contini, and I learned about this local law this morning when I went. Thank you. I learned about this local law this morning when I went on the computer, and you have to bear with me because I didn't even bother to read it because it's like 38 pages long. So a statement or two might not be exactly correct, but that's neither here nor there. The problem is, and I sincerely ask you to vote this thing down. I don't even know why you're considering it. I can't understand how you could seriously even bother to consider it. Do any of you realize the possible consequences of this local law? Looking at just the first page of it, I would predict that conceivably the impact on the taxpayers of this county would be far more considerable than that measly $75,000 that somebody was talking about. Because right now I can think of one candidate who ran in this county this year that if this law was in effect, he probably would have received over $1 million from this fund. Over $1 million. Maybe I'm a little bit incorrect, but quick math tells me he could have received more than that. If you really want to do something constructive for campaign reform, not only in this county but in the entire country, I would suggest that you consider a local law that would require that a background check be made on every single candidate that runs for public office, and even for people that want to be appointed for high positions in public office. That background check should include a security check, and any candidate that cannot get a security clearance should be barred from ever holding public office, not only here in the county, but in the entire country. That would be something positive. Like I said, I strongly suggest that you consider voting this thing down and never ever consider it again. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Howard Hall.
Howard.
All right, Howard.
Good evening. My name is Howard Ball. I've been a county resident going on 45 years now. I'm employed by CSEA. I'm a labor relations specialist, but I'm also a county taxpayer. Over the 14 years that I've been involved with CSEA, I've watched this legislature have verbal bloodbaths on the floor of this legislature over as little as $1,000 in a proposed budget. Some of you that are in this room have had those same battles over the years. I've personally battled and I've watched as our county services have been reduced or eliminated in a claim to reduce taxes. It's not really true that our taxes haven't gone up. Maybe our bills have remained somewhat the same, but we've lost huge amounts of services over the years. Essentially, we're paying the same money, but we're getting far less product. That's a tax increase. During a time of increasing mental health needs and increasing drug problem, the county cut mental health services, closed community corrections program, cut drug treatment services. The county at one point even eliminated 75% of the welfare fraud investigation unit. All of this was done because the executive and the legislature determined at one point or another that it was not important enough to spend money on these items. But now here we are today with a proposal to set aside thousands and thousands of dollars, at least in the beginning, of taxpayer money to fund political campaigns. Our county's still suffering with inadequate mental health services. We still have inadequate drug treatment programs. Drug crimes are continuously increasing, but yet we are considering spending thousands of dollars of taxpayer money to fund political campaigns. That's just ridiculous. I urge all of you to reject this proposed local law number 10 and vote no. Thank you.
Cynthia Bell.
My name is Cynthia Bell, and I speak both as a citizen of Ulster County and the president of the League of Women Voters of the Mid-Hudson region. It was both an honor and a pleasure to serve on the subcommittee to refine this law, and I found it to be a surprisingly bipartisan and respectful effort. These legislators generously welcomed input by all of us present and were thoughtful and open to the conversation. In the end, all agreed that this is the best version of the document that will be put before you for a vote. It seems that one major sticking point of this law is the public financing portion. I certainly understand that, though we all pay for things we'll never use or for helping people we'll never know. I do it all the time because it is for the greater good of our community. These procedures have been proven successful in the places where they have been implemented and have resulted in better government that is more representative of the people. Because of this, the League of Women Voters of the United States supports this type of campaign finance reform. I believe this law is just about as good as it can be, and welcome all to actually read it. I believe it sends the message to voters that Ulster County government supports a fair and balanced democratic process. Please vote yes for campaign finance reform. Thank you.
Thomas Merling.
Hello. I wanted to start out by saying I do not understand how any member of this body feels they have the right to come into our homes and take the food off of our tables to finance your own personal gains. And that's what this is. This is your own personal gains. You just want to run for office, pay for your run. It's not our responsibility to do that. We're not talking about needing funds to repair infrastructure, feed the indigent, or some type of unforeseen emergency. We're talking about politicians taking our money and using it to buy their yard signs, palm cards, bumper stickers, pens, and other personal political nonsense. In the end, you are not just robbing us of our family's finances, you are stripping us of our right to not give politicians our money. Even the politicians we profusely disagree with. There's been talk about this taking the big money out of this, but I see nothing in that bill that stops George Soros, who just put $200,000 plus into the David Clegg campaign by sending out mailers and ads on David's behalf. David didn't know about that, but it was still legal for the George Soros to do this. So there's nothing in this bill that stops that. So the big money will still be here. It's just that the politicians will be able to sit there and say, "Oh, look, we only took small donor money." Meanwhile, in the background, they're going to be funded by the same big money that these are all claiming this is going to end. It's also not going to help the little guy, which is another thing. This is supposed to help the little guy come in and play against the big guy. But the incumbent, if you're going to give both people the same amount of money, the incumbent already has the edge. You're hamstringing the new guy because it's going to take them more, or ladies, it's going to take them more money to get their name recognition up to the incumbent. Now, these are not my words, so don't throw anything here. Christianity is a gateway drug to male-identified daddy idol worship, misogyny, and white supremacy. It's at the root of the problem. Christian jihad is happening now. These are the Facebook posts of a woman that just ran for county legislator. So are you going to tell the Christians in this town, in this county, the tens of thousands of Christians in this town, that they have to pay for this woman's campaign? Absolutely not. There's more on the fact what she says about people like myself who voted for Donald Trump. Are you going to tell me that I have to pay her? I mean, there's some nasty words on this. So this is a woman that just ran for county legislator, and there's no way that we should be forced to pay for her campaign. Thank you.
Penny Coleman.
Hi, I'm Penny Coleman, I live in Rosendale, and, Penny Coleman, I live in Rosendale, and I want to thank you all for letting me speak tonight, and I also really want to thank the members of the Subcommittee on Campaign Finance Reform who were incredibly dedicated to this project. What campaign finance reform does is effectively limit the intrusion of big rent money and outright corruption into our local and countywide elections. Public anger about corruption depresses participation. When voters feel that only big donors have a say, they have less reason to turn out and engage politically in other ways. And that's not just a shame, it's a threat. When citizens become disillusioned with and distrust our local political processes, we all lose. Among the specific things this legislation does is it makes it possible for people with limited resources, those who would never have considered running in the past, to wage competitive campaigns, and it encourages diversity among our candidates and office holders. With diversity comes different experiences and different priorities. The requirement that candidates raise large numbers of small donations means that they must find ways to connect with large numbers of their constituents. That means more meet and greets, more town halls, more face-to-face interactions with voters where the real issues and concerns of the community can be addressed. The impact of donations from those who can only afford small amounts is augmented. When a $10 contribution becomes a $60 contribution, it gives voice to members of the community who felt unheard in the past. The small donations raised, when matched by public funds, make it possible for candidates and office holders to put the needs of their constituents above the needs of their donors. And the lowered cap on all contributions promotes public trust in officials and government. There are fewer opportunities for pay-to-play corruption or even its appearance. And for any who think that a higher ratio by which small donations are matched means that candidates will get more public money, that's simply not true. The amount of public money available for any qualifying candidate remains exactly the same, whatever the ratio. The law may set the ratio at 3-to-1, at 6-to-1, or at 10-to-1, but the maximum amount of public money that a candidate can receive remains the same. The only difference is how long it takes to get there. The arguments against campaign finance reform seem to boil down to money. I don't want my tax dollars paying for politicians to run for office. But it's probably worth remembering that sometimes very small increases in our taxes mean avoiding far greater indirect costs down the line. It can be a lot more expensive when we have to pick up the tab for some favor an elected official has done a big campaign donor. And there is, in my opinion, a great deal to be said in favor of giving more of us reason to trust our local government and even to consider becoming part of it. Thanks.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Elisa Tucci. I reside in Woodstock and I work as a teacher in Saugerties. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening and voice my support for local law number 10. As an educator of young people, I see how easy it is to live your life in a bubble of social media and reality TV. This has influenced me to be more engaged and more informed, and some way that landed me in being more engaged in local politics. Over the last couple of years, I've been attending regular sessions of the Ulster County Legislature, and this This has helped me garner an understanding of how local politics work. During this time, I've heard this body speak and vote on awarding contracts to companies such as Gorman Brothers, Peckman Road Corp., Westchester Medical Group, to name a few. And heated debates have ensued about the impropriety of awarding contracts to companies that may or may not have legally or illegally made donations to political campaigns. I do not wish to rehash these arguments. I believe it's best to leave them in the past. I am more concerned with the future. The reason that I mention them is because as a constituent, I want you to know that I find it deeply troubling. And I find this bill as an opportunity to address the impropriety of money in politics, whether it is actual or perceived. For me, campaign finance reform is an opportunity to create fair elections. One of the most exciting components, I believe, of this bill is the small donor matching system. This system helps remove the hindrance that some individuals that might want to run for public office might face due to limited resources. This is a really great example of leveling the playing field. I mentioned earlier that I'm a teacher. Every day I engage with young people. I try to present them with reasons to care, to be involved and present in their lives. And I must admit, it is a challenge to pull them up out of their apathy. And when you look at the world they live in, who can blame them? I believe this is an opportunity, this law is actually an opportunity to show the people of Ulster County that you care about making some serious changes. It's time that we make some serious changes about the big money that's in politics. I believe that the vote that you could make on campaign finance reforms can help to fix these things and leave our young people a brighter future. Thank you.
Todd Wogemuth.
Good evening. My name is Todd Wogemuth. I'm also here to speak on the campaign finance reform, law number 10. According to the legislative findings sections, this law aims to reduce public influence gained from political campaign contributions and prevent corruption or even the perception of it. I'd also point out that small donor matching programs allow people from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds to campaign for public office by leveling the playing field with those of greater means. And this helps the diversity of our communities be reflected in the representation, which is what fair elections is all about. Presumably everybody wants fair elections, I would guess, unless of course they already benefit from a skewed system. Because I also attended most of the subcommittee meetings on this, I'm aware that there are concerns regarding the cost to taxpayers, and obviously I didn't hear it tonight. Being a taxpayer of 30 years, I did some calculations on those costs. And I will give my calculations in writing. But in 2020, the cost of this bill per adult in Ulster County comes to 53 cents. It comes to $1.08 per household, or if you go by tax parcel, it comes to 86 cents. In the countywide election years, the maximum that's allowed is $210,000, like one we just went through, where everybody's getting elected. The maximum cost to a taxpayer is $1.50, an adult in the county. The maximum in a household is $3.01. $3.01. A parcel of tax parcel is $2.84. It seems to me that if you honestly explain true costs and the benefits of these laws, you get wholehearted support for the law. How could I not want to spend $2.84 to have fair elections in my county? Now, while I know there's other interests, unions in particular oppose this, when one looks at the millions of dollars those organizations pour into campaigns, it's easy to see why they don't want their influence affected by it. It's easy to see the argument, in order to counter these big money adversaries, they seem to need the same influence, is not really compelling. Because what we want is fair representation. So the solution to big money in politics isn't bigger money in politics. It's a robust small donor matching program, preferably in a closed system. Well, this isn't, unfortunately, but it could be. and it encourages the participation of the whole community. This law is a great step in the right direction. I hope the legislature will support it. It's really not about parties. This is about fair representation and inclusive representation. I'm sorry, but the unions in this country have poured $217 million since 2016 into political races. That's a lot of clout, and it's not fair to the rest of the country. We need fair elections, and small donor matching can go a long way to do that, and the limits that are put in this law go even further to help get big money out of politics. So I hope you support it. Thank you.
The last speaker signed up is Gay Galitzin.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm an Ulster County resident. I live in Kingston. I fully support this campaign finance initiative. It strikes a real blow to the pay-to-pay contributors and makes the small local donor more important, leveling the playing field for the average voter. And it works. In New York City, the New York City Council elections have matching funds, and you can track on a map the huge number of small donors from all over the city, which is a real contrast to the map of donors for other elections where the large donors from a few affluent areas predominate. Secondly, it will enable people from all walks of life to stand for election. I'd like to see more representatives from the caring industries, from the education field, and maybe see the farming industry represented. Candidates standing for rural districts have a much harder time reaching their constituents and raising funds to do so than those representing the towns. And if they are non-traditional candidates, they have even more hurdles. Getting the support of small donors will allow these people access to public funds, which may make the difference in their campaigns. I urge you to vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who did not sign up who would like to speak on proposal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment? Opposed? Okay, the third public hearing is adjourned.